on this computer. And then I'm going to click live.
Got it.
And I have to fill out this real quick. What do we call it? Keep your money? Keep
your money.
your money.
Where's my money?
Yeah. And group. We're going to go to Southeast Texas. I'm going to do a little copy and paste. Copy, paste. Okay. We got that. We got that. Okay. Well, aloha, everybody. We are live on, let's see here. Well, actually, before we get too far, since I am still learning this, I want to make sure that we truly are live in our group. And if we are, I will keep going. So we are. All right. So I would like to welcome everybody today. This is our first live broadcast with a guest, and today we have Vernon Brokke, if I've pronounced that properly. We're here on Southeast Texas multifamily real estate owners thinking about selling, and what we do here is we have lives that try to bring information and value to the folks that are part of this group. And today, our very first guest on our live is Vernon, and Vernon comes to us with a long list of credits here, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. Vernon is the expertise when it comes to cash flow and tax strategies. He's been involved in real estate for over 4 decades. And Vernon and I met a little over a year ago when I was part of another group, and he was talking in that group, and I had started researching what to do if in fact they did away with 1031s, because last year they had talked about possibly the 1031s going away, which is your tax deferred exchange, which a lot of us investors use. And through this process, I found about DSTs. And after 20 plus years in the industry, I had never heard of that. And the DST is the Deferred Sales Trust. And Vernon is an expert in both of these fields, amongst other things. And what we wanted to do today was bring Vernon on here and talk to you a little bit about how to create a continuous stream of income using the government's money by using these tax deferred strategies, including the 1031 exchange and the DSTs. And basically, you're going to keep your money instead of giving it away to the government. So with that, we have Vernon today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about maybe the difference between 1031s, DSTs, and how we can apply these to our investing so that we can keep more of our money. Go ahead, Vernon. Welcome.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to speaking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I actually did a 1031 like-kind exchange a number of years ago, and I took one property and turned it into 3. So that's the advantage of a 1031. And there's basically 4 things you can do with a property that you have. You can not sell it, you can keep it. You can do a 1031 exchange, and we'll talk about that. You can also do what's called a Delaware statutory trust, which is like a 1031, but without you managing it. Somebody else manages it for you. And then there's a deferred sales capital gains trust that allows you to keep the money that's not really the government's money, it's really your money, right? So you get to keep the money that would have been yours, and that is yours, but you don't have to give it to the government right now. And the beauty of it is you can defer it for 10 years at a time, so that you could actually make it a legacy kind of opportunity for you. And then the other thing is that you could sell it and pay the taxes. That's the other option that you have. So what's a 1031? So a 1031 like-kind exchange is a tool that you can use where you basically find other properties that you would like to manage. And that's the key. You're still involved in the management. You're still involved in toilets, trash, and tenants if you want, but it has to be of equal or greater value. And you also have to keep it. You have to identify it within 45 days, and you have to close on it within 180 days. So that's kind of the limitations. So you identify, like I did, 3 different properties, add an intermediary, set up the agreement, and then the buyer that actually bought my property bought the other properties and exchanged them to me for my property. So that was the good news. The bad news is I still had the toilets, trash, and tenants, which over time wore on me. So I sold those properties. I bought other ones as well, but so that's kind of the 1031. A Delaware statutory trust does the same thing, where you can defer the capital gains tax, like kind or greater value, but you're turning it over to a management company, and the management company is making all the decisions. They're making the decisions for the rents. There's a lot of management fees. There's a lot of, I guess, things that you might want to consider before you actually would go into a Delaware statutory trust, but it is an option for you. Now, contrast that to the Deferred Sales Trust, or what we call capital gains trust deferment, which is any asset that has appreciated. That includes property, but it also could include stock. It could include a business. It could include, if you bought cryptocurrency, if you had art that appreciated in value, if you have stock that you're selling and you're going to have a capital gains, you could also use it for that. So it can be used for any asset, but let's look at it from the standpoint of a property that you're selling. I'm going to take a drink of water here. So you could take just for argument's sake, a $5 million house that maybe you invested in it a few years ago. It was $1 million house to begin with. So you got $4 million worth of capital gains. On that, if you live in California, you're going to pay 20% of that to the federal at least, and they're talking about making that go up. You're going to pay 13% to California, and then you got the Affordable Care Act contribution, which is another 3%. So California 13, the ACA and then the federal tax, you're talking 33, 36%. So you're talking about $1.5 million that you're going to cut checks to those entities. Contrast that to a DST, where you could sell the property to a trust that you establish. So you call it the Helios Capital Investment Trust. And you create that trust, and you have a trustee that you sell your asset to, and you take that asset and they sell it to a buyer. The trust does. And then the money that comes to the trustee gets deposited into a bank and looked at from the standpoint of what is your investment profile going forward. Do you want stocks? Do you want bonds? Do you want annuities? Do you want to invest in other real estate? I had one client that actually took $1.5 million sale that he had of his business and a rental property. And he decided that he wanted a portion of the money that he had deferred to go into hard money lending. So he took, you know, 10% of it, put it into a hard money lender, to somebody who was going to rehab a property that he had. And he liked the idea of it because it's safe in a lot of ways because you got the asset, right? But you could do that. So he was going to get a 13% return, and he liked that kind of return on his money for that little portion that he had. So you get the alternatives to invest in almost anything you want. If you want to give to charity, you could do that. If you want to invest in another property, you could do that. The beauty is there's no timeline. So you don't have the 45 days to finalize like you do on a 1031 and 180 days to contract with the buyer of your new property. So what it does is it allows you to create a promissory note with the trustee, and the trust will send you monthly payments in the determination of how much you want the payments to be. Let's say it's $1 million or $3 million capital gains. You could say I want $20,000 a month, and you can set that up so that it comes with it, and the rest of it goes into other investments that you look at with a portfolio of how you want that allocated. So it gives you all the flexibility. And then what it is, a 10-year note, and that 10-year note can be renewed after 10 years, and then another 10 years, and then another 10 years if you want. It can be, if it goes into your estate, your heirs can actually continue the process, the payments, or they can cash out and pay the tax at that time.
Okay.
So it gives you all the flexibility with a continued stream of income and no timelines. So those are the definitive differences between the two or three options that you have.
Okay. And for our listeners, if anything is popping up in your head that you want answers to, whether we are able to get to it on the live or not, you're welcome to in the comments. Just go ahead and put that question and we will get back to you. A couple of things that you mentioned that I want to highlight on. Okay, so 1031, you're in escrow and you're going to do a 1031 and something. Obviously, you can't touch that money. It has to go straight to another third party. Now, how is that different from a DST? Kind of the same process?
Yeah, you sell the property to the trust. You set up the trust with the trustee, and then you sell the property to the trust, which you are part owner of. And then the trustee sells it to the buyer.
Okay. Okay, so you go this way instead of this way.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. And another thing, you actually mentioned it a couple of times. At first, you talk about legacy, and then later you talked about heirs. So basically, this can be passed on down, and your heirs can do the 10 by 10 by 10 as long as they want, or they can cash out and just pay the taxes.
That's correct.
Cool.
The other thing I want to point out is that it comes under a different part of the tax code. The IRC Internal Revenue Code 1031 is for 1031s, and they're a target this year to by the current administration to increase the amount or the percentage. The Deferred Sales Trust comes under a different. It comes under the lender's code, so a promissory note. So back in the beginning part of the U.S., when you owned a piece of land, you wanted to sell it, they didn't have the money, so what you did is create a promissory note, and it comes under that section of the law.
Okay, and there's tax advantages to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not as much under scrutiny right now because they're not looking at that as part of the challenge for states losing money and the federal government needing more. So
yeah, we'll give them time.
Give them time. That's right.
Yeah, give them time, exactly. And then we'll have to figure out another solution to the challenge. With that, that's why we're here. Just like the way I met you, I was looking for a solution to a potential challenge, not only for myself but the investors that I work with, and that's how I came across this. And So we can take this, we can invest in almost anything. So we don't have to do for like. If one was interested, and obviously if you're in California and you got a $4 million spread on your property, that's great. But if I live in the Midwest, chances are I'm not. But I may be able to take advantage of it. What is kind of like a minimum into the trust?
Yeah, so you want at least $500,000 or more of capital gains. Depending upon what you have, we have one client that had 8 properties that were 300,000 each. And she was looking to sell them, but she didn't know how to but defer the capital gains. So when she came to us, she sold the one, put that in the trust, sold the second one, put that in. They're about 300,000 each. So if you have, $1 million to $3 million worth of real estate of capital gains, in the Midwest and anywhere else, there's still state tax. Yeah. And a lot of the states are going after that money for the 1031 because they're running short in the coffers,
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of, like California, people are moving out of California, have taken advantage of the low tax rates there with the 1031 prior, but now they're leaving and the state's saying, hey, wait a minute, you didn't pay us for when you were here. Now you're going to go somewhere else and not pay us. So they're looking to get that money.
Yeah. And they'll figure out a way. Again, all we have to do is be diligent on trying to find solutions to those challenges.
Yep.
Unlike breathing air is mostly free nowadays, but obviously to set up this trust and to maintain it and everything else, I don't need to get into details in that, but is it an annual fee? Is it based on, dollars? How is that done?
That's a good question. There's an initial fee of 1.5% up front. So if you have $1 million property, it's $15,000 to set it up. And then there's an annual fee that would be for the management of the trust, which is a small percentage, 0.75. And then the other one is the annual CPA tax form that would be filed. The first year, the law firm that we contract with will do that with the accounting firm, and after that, the CPA that you work with now can do it. Okay,
and obviously, if I'm putting money into this account and I'm taking a part of it and I'm doing private money and earning 13% on that private money, that's going to cover my fees.
Right. Right.
Okay. Well, cool. I don't know if there's any last minute things you want to add to this, but this is basically a great snapshot. If you've got anything to add to it, great. The only thing I can actually say is Helios Capital Investments Trust. If anybody wishes to contribute to it, just let me know.
Yeah, right.
So I'll open it tomorrow and we'll start that fund. But any last minutes before we get ready to call it good here?
Yeah, I would say that, we offer a no cost, no obligation look at it. All we're trying to do is help, business and property owners to be able to look at alternatives. And it's one of those things that if you look at it and it makes sense, you go forward. If not, then there might be some other strategies that we could help with, or you wait till next year or the next time that you go to sell something.
Yeah. So, and you also have other services as well. In fact, one that you and I've been talking about, but I've been, I've laid down on the job and not gotten you the information. You want to share what those are?
Yeah. So one of them is the cost segregation, which is, if you're not familiar with that, it accelerates depreciation on any building. Probably about 300 to 500,000 or more would make it worthwhile. We just did. We're about to do about 14 different properties that an investment firm has out in Washington State for 14 of their properties. And it's going to make a significant difference on their taxes.
Yeah.
They can, if they made what I think they have to make, where it's like $1 million or more, they can offset it with the cost segregation for this year and not have to pay those high taxes. So it does defer that for a while as well.
And the last thing on that topic, just so people understand that cost segregation is basically compressing that time period. Let's just say somebody gets into a property, but they have an intention of, and maybe it's a big property with, the high dollar amount, but they plan on within 2 years, liquidating that asset. Does it make sense to do it then, or should they have it at least X amount of years?
Yeah, you want it more than 2. You
Yeah.
probably want it closer to 5 if you're
Okay.
going to keep. You can also use it on properties that you've had for a while.
Yeah.
Like if you have a depreciation schedule that you started 2 or 3 years ago, you can go back and amend that with a 3115, which allows you to change the method of accounting for that. Pretty simple, straightforward with your accountant. And then you just go forward using that new depreciation schedule for it. But yeah, closer to 5 years. 3 years is okay if you're going to keep it that long, but 5 years is much better. If you're going to sell it in 2 years, it wouldn't be worth it for you. Okay,
perfect. All right. Well, Vernon, I want to say thank you very much for being on today and being my first guest. And what I want to do is offer anybody that's listening out there, if you picked up a nugget out of this, please let us know and let's thank Vernon. But more importantly, if there's anything we can do to help, if you want to communicate with either myself or Vernon on how to keep more of your own money, in the comments, just write "keep my money." And once you do that, we're going to respond to you and find out what it is we can do to help and make sure you get the appropriate connections. But we want to thank Vernon for joining us today and thank everybody for listening today. And if you've got anything that you've got, just pop it in the comments and we're here and happy to help in any way we can. So Vernon, thank you very much. And we appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you on again soon.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Anything I can do, let me know.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha.